Chairman of Naresuan University Council, Nobel Laureate, Representative of Taungam Network, Administrator of Academic Institutions, Chief Executive Officer of Private Sectors, Honorable guests, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4th ASEAN Event Series on Bridget's Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace, hosted by Bridget's Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace, International Peace Foundation and Naresuan University, and co-organized by the Taungam Network. I am Assistant Professor Dr. Pasawan Korakochaman, Assistant to the President of Naresuan University. And the lady next to me is Dr. Chayanin Pratumsud, Assistant to the Dean of the Faculty of Public Health at Naresuan University. Today we both are very much honored to perform as the MC for the great event.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Dr. Pasawan, for such a kind introduction. In this year, ladies and gentlemen, our event is honored by Professor Sir Harold Walter Kroto, a 1996 Nobel laureate for chemistry at Florida State University, USA. His world-changing discovery of the Buckminster fullerene and the related class of the molecules fullerenes had aroused excitement throughout the scientific arena. His keynote speech on this important lecture is Education, the Basis for Peace and the Key to an Enlightened Global Community.
Yes, Dr. Chianin. Additionally, at this event, Naresuan University also takes this opportunity to confer an honorary doctorate in chemistry on Professor Kroto, who is regarded as the world-renowned figure.
Therefore, prior to the conferment, we are both going to hear such a remarkable speech from Professor Kroto. We would like to show you all a video presentation of Naresuan University, which takes place at Pisnulok Province, where the university is situated. The duration of the video presentation is approximately 7 minutes.
Let's see the presentation, please.
In a world where changes are inevitable, healthy human resources are seen as a key component to push the country towards globalization. To compete well in the globalized world, both in potentiality and capacity, education is considered the foremost issue, playing its significant role to enhance resources. This requires that higher education institutions properly respond to current issues, arising both at the national and international level. Naresuan University is situated in Pisnulok Province, where it has long been one of the most important cities of Thailand. The province is the birthplace of King Naresuan the Great. The King Naresuan the Great monument commemorates his heroic achievement during the time he was crown prince governing the province. With this history, His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej graciously named this university Naresuan University. Naresuan University was officially established on July 29, 1990, and the date is also considered auspicious as it marked the 400th anniversary of King Naresuan the Great's accession to the throne. The history of the university can be traced back to its inception as the College of Education in 1967. And Naresuan University celebrated its 20th anniversary in 2010. The university has developed numerous curricula for its large number of faculties, and schools and colleges in order to respond well to the global dynamic pace. With thousands of projects initiated by His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej and his lifetime dedication in his reign to the development of the country and the lives of his people, Naresuan University was graciously granted permission to confer an honorary doctorate degree on His Majesty the King 2 decades ago. Besides, Naresuan University has also conferred a large number of honorary doctorate degrees on distinguished and dedicated honorees. With skillful lecturers and professors, Naresuan University is committed to producing well-qualified students at all levels of study. To date, 80,000 graduates are serving the Thai society, which proudly reflects the philosophy that Thai society be free from ignorance. Research excellence is a priority at Naresuan University, as the university strives to become one of the top research-based universities in Thailand. This can be seen through a series of achievements. For example, Associate Professor Dr. Ganchali Jetiyanon, the use of rhizobacteria on induction of plant growth. Professor Dr. Somyot Plaptiang, outstanding researchers in science and mathematics. Assistant Professor Dr. Mangon Prapanwattana, honorary pharmacist awarded by the Medical Association of Thailand. Associate Professor Dr. Gonganok Inkaninan, licensing on the Thai herb Promi to enhance memory. Research and innovation at the student level have also led Naresuan University to a visible standing at the national level. For example, Faculty of Engineering students winning award of INSEE lightweight concrete competition. Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences students award on research in investigation of new drugs for Alzheimer's disease. Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences students rewarded for innovation on utilizing nanoparticles and trapping natural extracts from pomegranate for health application. Academic services are consistently strengthened through a number of activities, such as a mobile unit where lecturers contribute their academic assistance to remote villages, and the best practice village, where successful administration is studied in a number of villages to see what can be applied to other villages based on a sufficiency economy. Language competency development is considered a key to enhance staff and students' language competence, particularly in the English language and other widely spoken languages in ASEAN countries. The university provides exhaustive learning resources where modern technologies and multimedia are available. Efficient assessment and evaluation procedures and activities, which allow students to interact with native speakers, are part of success in language development. The Naresuan University Continuing Education Division is also highlighted as a tool to foster those who willingly engage in lifelong learning or lack opportunities to develop in their field of interest, which are related to their professions. Extracurricular activities are always deemed a necessity if we would like to achieve situationally based learning. This learning approach will allow students to think critically and make informed decisions based on a comprehension of different situations and cultures. The university encourages the student to take part in either a clinical practicum or professional training. The clinical practicum is directed towards students in medicine and nursing who are required to practice in the wards at the Naresuan University Hospital. Professional training, on the other hand, is undertaken by students in the other faculties. For instance, pharmaceutical students have their training at the community pharmacy. Study and research are essential mechanisms of education. The Central Library serves as a source of knowledge where technologies and multimedia are seamlessly merged in a well-defined and up-to-date system, giving access to over 200,000 volumes of textbooks and over 6,000 entries of multimedia. Naresuan University has been developed steadily and is ready to take further challenging paces in accordance with its key missions. well-qualified students production to serve both country and world needs. Research excellence and academic service to achieve sustainable development of Thai society. Art and culture conservation to sustain the country's appreciations of its heritage and the spirit of humanity. This will assure a firm and steady move on the stage of higher education globally.
So that was the introductory presentation of Naresuan University, one of Thao Ngam networks. Thank you very much for your great attention.
Well, Dr. Chianin, what are the Thao Ngam networks?
Right, the Thao Ngam networks are networks of colleges of education comprised of 8 campuses around Thailand, plus 4 campuses around Bangkok. Later, they were officially granted university status by His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej.
And for this event, we have 5 members of Thao Ngam networks joining us. They are Naresuan University, Srinakharinthara Virod University, Mahasarakam University, Thaksin Universities, and Burapha University. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take you to the conferment of an honorary doctorate in chemistry on Professor Sir Harold Walter Kroto, who was awarded the 1996 Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
First of all, may I take this opportunity to invite the following honorable people to be on the stage. First, Professor Dr. Krasea Chanawong, Chairman of Naresuan University Council.
Second, General Dr. Siri Tiwapan, Deputy Chairman of Naresuan University Council.
Third, Emeritus Professor Dr. Bunchaw Pongpanit, Honorable Committee of Naresuan University Council.
Next, Associate Professor Dr. Warakon Samkose, Honorable Committee of Naresuan University Council.
Next, Associate Professor Dr. Suchinda Jemsipong, Committee of Naresuan University Council.
Next, Dr. Suchat Meungkao, Committee and Secretary of Naresuan University Council.
Professor Dr. Sujin Jinayon, President of Naresuan University.
Professor Dr. Somyot Praptiang, Dean of the Faculty of Science at Naresuan University. And the last person we would like to invite to be seated on the stage is, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to welcome our honorary doctorate and Nobel laureate, Professor Sir Harold Walter Kroto. Please, Professor.
At this auspicious moment, may we take this opportunity to invite Professor Dr. Krasea Chanawong, Chairman of Naresuan University, to be at the podium in order to read the citation for Professor Sir Harold Kroto, please, Mr. Chairman.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be standing before you today to welcome the great people of the world, our professor, our distinguished guests, and the one that we are going to have a conferment of doctorate degree for him. Professor Sir Harold Kroto. Professor Sir Harold Kroto was awarded the 1996 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his discoveries of carbon compounds and the carbon-60 molecule, known as the Buckminster fullerene. His path to become a Nobel laureate in chemistry began to pave in his early years through work experiences, play, and study. He spent his school vacations in his father's small balloon factory, repairing machinery and doing inventory using scales, log tables, and a slide rule. His favorite toy was a mechano set, a set of erector set which require mechanical dexterity, and a Boston secondary school. He showed an aptitude for chemistry, physics, and mathematics. Later, he attended the University of Sheffield, where he obtained a BA honors degree in chemistry and a PhD in molecular spectroscopy. After graduation, he left England for North America, where he conducted research at the National Research Council in Canada and the Bell Laboratory in the United States. Returning to England, he taught and conducted research at the University of Sussex for 37 years and became a full professor in 1985 and Royal Society Research Professor in 1991. In 1996, Professor Kroto was knighted for his contribution to chemistry. Professor Sir Harold Kroto's discoveries of carbon-60 has gone far beyond the disciplines of chemistry and is influencing physics, material science, astronomy, and nanoscience. Since 2004, Professor Kroto has held the Francis Epps Professorship in Chemistry at Florida State University in the United States, where he is conducting research in nanoscience. Professor Kroto's illustrious career has impacted not only research in the science, but through his Vega Science Trust, established 1995, and through his work with GeoSet, a global education outreach for science, engineering, and technology project. He is supporting science education worldwide with the production of science films for network television. The program on the Vega Free website have been designed by Professor Kroto and seen in over 165 countries. Professor Sir Harold Kroto has received numerous awards, including 37 honorary doctorate degrees from universities around the world. In addition, he has been honored as a Fellow of the Royal Society of London and Foreign Associate of the U.S. National Academy of Science. He is the recipient of many recognitions, such as International Prize for New Materials from the American Physical Society in 1992, the Italgas Prize for Innovation in Chemistry in 1992, the Royal Society of Chemistry of the Longstaff Medal in 1993, the Hewlett-Packard Europhysics Prize in 1994, the American Carbon Society Medal for Achievements of Carbon Science in 1997, the Faraday Award for the scientist who has contributed most to further public communications of science, engineering, and technology in the United Kingdom in 2001, and the Copley Medal in 2004. In recognition of Professor Sir Harold Kroto's groundbreaking work in chemistry, his continuing research in nanoscience, and his abiding commitment to science education, Naresuan University is honored to present Professor Sir Harold Kroto an honorary doctorate in science in the fields of chemistry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for such a wonderful and touching citation.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Sujin Jinayon, the President of Naresuan University, to confer the honorary doctorate in chemistry on Professor Sir Harold Walter Kroto. Please, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, may I take this opportunity to invite Professor Dr. Somyot Plaptiang, Dean of the Faculty of Science, Naresuan University, to present the academic gown to Professor Sir Harold Kroto. Please, Professor.
Thank you very much, Professor Somyot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give another big round of applause to our honorary doctorate in chemistry, Professor Sir Harold W. Kroto.
And now may I have an honor to invite Professor Kroto to give us the acceptance speech. Please, Professor.
Well, it's obviously a great honor. And what can I say to come to Thailand and receive this? But as Henry VIII said to his wives, I shan't keep you very long. It's interesting to think about honors. As you know, that we have honors also in England, and I received a knighthood. I thought this was very strange because one day I went downstairs and Margaret had gone out early because normally she gets the mail. And I sat on the bottom of the stairs opening this envelope, which said, the Prime Minister has it in mind to advise the Queen to offer you a knighthood. And there were 2 little boxes underneath, tick yes or no. So my pen hovered for a microsecond over no, to show you how thin the veneer of my Republican sort of tendency was. So I obviously accepted this knighthood. I thought, I was a bit surprised. I thought some friends of mine were playing a trick on me. I thought they probably sent me this letter to say, just to think that there was it. But then I received a letter from someone who also had a knighthood to say, there is no downside to a K. That's the knighthood begins with a K, believe it or not, in English. And I discovered that is correct. I discovered my friends, they were pleased for me. Those who didn't know me, many of you people here, were impressed. And my enemies were a bit pissed off with this. So there was no downside to it. So honors are very interesting, and they are something that I value very, very much. And coming here, and I must thank you for it. I think it's, I don't realize what to say about this, that now I've come to an age of excessive youth, that I see that some young people in the audience here, to say that many of you are at university, and I think it's a fantastic place to be. It's a place where you can explore all facets of your creative potential, not just in the subject of your degree, but to use that opportunity because you're very fortunate to go to university. When I went to university, and my wife Margaret, who's here, less than 10% of the British children went to university. Also, I think you'll see that I think in today's newspaper there were discussions about internet courses, and these are very, very important. However, for me at university, one of the most important aspects was to link with other students of my age group. The friends that I made at university, in fact, I sort of met my wife there. The friends that we had at that time, a period of 3 years as an undergraduate and 3 years as a PhD student, were the most important period in my life, and I think in my wife's. Even this morning, just this morning, I got an email from my old tennis partner at Sheffield University. And it was about Andy Murray losing to Djokovic. And it said, Jack, who's now living in New Zealand, and we visited them, we have friends all over the world, most of them during that period said, well, at least Andy won the first point. So, obviously for many young people, the internet will be a major contribution to their education. But you the students here in this audience who are at this university, Narrasuan, take advantage of this period because it will allow you to explore other things. There's so many other things. And it will not be possible after you leave this university. You'll go into a job, you'll have responsibility, and you won't have the time to see what else will be important. And as I will say in my lecture, for me, what was important was not just the subject, the science, the chemistry that I did, but in particular, in the breakthrough that we made that led to the Nobel Prize, my interest in architecture and other areas was very important. And I will mention that in the rest of my talk. So it's very interesting to be here and to accept this. But as you get older, and I discovered I'm no longer 27, I discovered that some things are difficult. For instance, playing tennis is difficult because I have a shoulder injury. And I went to see the doctor and I said, Doctor, it hurts when I do this. And the doctor said, well, don't do that. That's medical doctors for you, which are some of you around. I think it's very interesting to be here, and I think I will speak to you as young people as you go out. Your parents, I know I had the same problem, but you go to university, you don't think about it. You don't think about your parents, but your parents actually think about you every day. It's a one-way thing. So as you go to an art university, and you say, they probably give them a call every now and then. And it'll probably make them, and they might actually pay your mobile phone bill for you, which is another good reason for calling home and telling them you're doing okay, because they do think about you. And I must admit, when I was at university, I didn't think so much about it, but it is important to do that. And with that, I think I'll stop and say thank you very much to the university for this great honor. Thank you.
That was such a remarkable and touching speech. Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him another big round of applause.
In order to express our deep gratitude and appreciation to our Nobel laureate, may I take this opportunity to invite Professor Dr. Kroto Chanawong, Chancellor of Nalason University, to present a congratulatory memento to Professor Sir Harold W. Kroto. Please, Mr. Chancellor. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the noteworthy and breathtaking moment that we are waiting for. The program for part of the 4th ASEAN event series, Bridget Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace. Is that right, Dr. Chiani?
Yes, certainly, Dr. Paswan. On behalf of Naresuan University, we organized this event as we believe that it would be an opportunity for you to establish possible linkage with the world-renowned figure.
Yes.
In terms of staff development, research activities, and sharing perspectives that may be of interest between you and Professor Kroto. And now we are very delighted that you have come to participate in this conferment ceremony and the lecture. Thank you very much for that.
So we're waiting for the stage to be set up, just a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm. What a wonderful occasion, isn't it, today?
Right, that's right. And such a wonderful acceptance speech from Professor Kroto. Mm-hmm. Education is very, very important.
Right. Very good. A remarkable man indeed.
Yes. All right, I think we will be ready soon.
Yes.
Dr. Chayanin.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Nevertheless, before we are going to hear Professor Kroto's wonderful lecture, I would like to invite Mr. Uwe Morawetz, the chairman of International Peace Foundation, to give us some background and introduction of the lecture. Please, Mr. Chairman.
Sawadee Krap and welcome to the 4th ASEAN event series, Bridges, Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace. Bridges is facilitated by the International Peace Foundation, a non-political and non-religious foundation under the common patronage of 21 Nobel Peace Prize laureates based in Vienna. The events are hosted in cooperation with various local partners, including some of the country's major universities, and I would like to thank Naresuan University and its president, Professor Suchin, and his chairman, Professor Grasset, for hosting our event today. Having started in November last year, Bridges is now being continuously held in Thailand and Vietnam until March, involving the participation of Nobel laureates for peace, physics, chemistry, medicine, and economics, as well as with other keynote speakers, including the former president of the European Commission, Romano Prodi. The fourth ASEAN series of Bridges follows the series of 450 Bridges events, which the International Peace Foundation has already hosted in Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Cambodia since 2003, as an independent contribution to the Decade for a Culture of Peace and Nonviolence, initiated and promoted by the United Nations General Assembly. The pluralistic program of Bridges highlights the International Peace Foundation's intercultural and transdisciplinary approach towards peace. The foundation doesn't take sides, but acts as a mediator by creating an independent platform for dialogue where representatives of science, politics, economy, culture, religion, the media, and youth can meet, share their viewpoints, listen to each other, and find mutual ways of understanding and cooperation. Therefore, the foundation itself is a bridge and a facilitator between different language groups in our divided societies, where politicians speak another language than artists, and business and religious leaders another one than scientists. In a highly interdependent world, problems cannot be solved by either one of these language groups only, but by working together. After the success of its Bridges programs in Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Cambodia, the International Peace Foundation has been invited by other ASEAN countries to build further bridges towards peace and international understanding by expanding its program in Southeast Asia to stimulate the intellectual, scientific, and cultural exchange in the region. The fourth ASEAN Bridges series therefore continuously takes place in Thailand and Vietnam from November to March, comprising events with Nobel laureates from all fields. The Nobel laureates visit the region not all at once, but separately to conduct public lectures, seminars, workshops, and dialogues hosted by local institutions during a continued period of 5 months. The aim of Bridges is to facilitate and strengthen dialogue and communication between societies in Southeast Asia with their multiple cultures and faiths, as well as with peoples in other parts of the world, to promote understanding and trust. The events aim at building bridges with local universities and other institutions in Southeast Asia to establish long-term relationships with Nobel laureates in all fields, which may result in common research programs and other forms of collaboration. By enhancing science, technology, and education as a basis for peace and development, the events may lead to a better cooperation for the advancement of peace, freedom, and security in the region, with the active involvement of the young generation, ASEAN's key to the future. This is why Bridges is not designed as a one-time event, but as a continuous process of synergies to make the events a sustainable success for Thailand, for Vietnam, and for Southeast Asia as a whole. I'm grateful to Naresuan University as well as to our other partners and sponsors who have enabled us to make the idea of Bridges a reality. I would like to say thank you to everyone present today for taking part in this program. May it help us to facilitate a new culture of peace through dialogue, transcending its definition as merely the absence of war or armed conflict into a new understanding what the basis for peace is: education. In this spirit, we welcome today the Nobel laureate for chemistry, Professor Sir Kroto, who has agreed to come to Thailand to support the events. We all look forward to his keynote speech and to his important contribution to build bridges. Thank you, Professor Kroto. Thank you, Margaret Kroto.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your perspective and special introductory speech. Ladies and gentlemen, before we are listening to the long-awaited lecture from our guest of honor, Professor Sir Harold Kroto, please allow us to give you an introduction on the man of the hour.
As you may know, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1996 for the discovery of the Buckminster fullerene, the molecule that has been vastly utilized in many fields. But what you may not know is that he has appeared in several educational arenas to foster scientific mindset of young generation, as it appears in many video clips on YouTube featuring his lectures relating to education.
And therefore today his lecture will not be of chemistry, however, but it will be on his passion, which is education-related issue. So ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure and honor to listen to his lecture on education, the basics of peace, and the key to an enlightened global community live today.
Speaking of live, you will be astounded to learn that he is also an excellent guitar player, and hopefully we will look forward to hearing a song played by him sometime during this dinner. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Sir Harold Kroto for his lecture. Please, Professor.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. What's it? Okay, yes, I better do this. Okay. Okay, I think we're somewhere near there. Just one thing I need before I get started. I need some thing which hopefully we'll find. Okay. No problem. Yeah, it's okay. Okay, I hope I can do this. Okay, this is a very serious lecture. And when I do introduce this lecture, I usually start with my favorite quotation. And it's this one: if you make people think they're thinking, they love you, okay? But if you really make them think, they hate you. And I think many of you have experienced this. And basically, I'm not here to make you feel comfortable. I'm here to make you think about, I guess, a lot of issues. And this one, basically, is education, the key to an enlightened global community. And we're going to discuss peace issues as well. The main task of a teacher, I think, is to unlock the creative potential of each and every young person. It's not the only one, but it's one of the most important ones. And I love this picture. My wife, Margaret, took this picture of this little boy totally engrossed in a hands-on exercise. The next thing, which is something that's Americans are very keen on, and it's called leadership. But not many people understand what it is. And I think of the role of a leader as that of a teacher whose aim must be to nurture the ability of students to think for themselves so they no longer need to be led. After all, what merit is there to leading a flock of sheep? Okay? Students are not there to be taught to be sheep. Our civilization never moved forward with sheep, but basically that's an issue. Now, we talked about the Enlightenment, and there's a very famous gentleman who thought about this. And I'll mention it in German. Uwe will recognize this. Aufklärung ist der Ausgang des Menschen aus seiner selbstverschuldeten Unmündigkeit. Now, of course, not everybody other than Uwe. And I don't even understand it, but I'm just saying it. No, I do. But it's very difficult to translate. Unmündigkeit is something that I don't think is easy to translate into English. Some things are not translatable. But the best I can do is enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-imposed mental immaturity. This immaturity is the inability to use one's own understanding without another's guidance. What is involved in education really is to teach you how to be citizens without being told what you're to do. That's important. This immaturity is self-imposed if its cause lies not in lack of understanding, but in indecision and lack of courage to use one's own mind without another's guidance. That's enlightenment. All right? Do we live in an enlightened age or an age of enlightenment? He argues that in 1784 in Prussia, the society lived in an age of enlightenment, meaning they were in the process of becoming enlightened, but had not yet achieved an age of enlightenment. I believe that we still have a problem. I think we might even be going backwards. And I think young people today need to be encouraged to think for themselves, because I think that's an issue. However, creativity involves synthesis. Education does. And I thought, when you think about being creative and what you should educate, you should try to ensure that young people are interested in as much as possible in science, art, film, music, humor, writing, graphics, and books. One of the best examples of synthesis really comes from chemistry. Yeah, it's a field, a vineyard, okay? And here you take carbon dioxide and water, and with photons you produce a carbohydrate, and then you do the next best thing, you take an enzyme and you produce alcohol. And then you can, these fellows can do it, and you can enjoy a glass of wine, all right? Now, that's synthesis, where synthesis enables you to take some things like carbon dioxide and water and do something that is more above and beyond what those are by themselves. The great scientist Pasteur said, "In the fields of observation, chance favors only the prepared mind." Well, the prepared mind is about education. How do we, as teachers, how do you as students prepare your mind? Well, I'm going to tell you something about me, okay? Yes, I used to be as young as you young people in the audience. I was even younger at one time. Hard to believe. And my teacher at the time wrote to my mother. I was called Kroto then, okay? And Miss Bowker thinks I had better write and tell you that we are not at all pleased with the way Harold, that is me, has been working during the last few weeks. He is very fond of play. And in fact, I think basically that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that our lessons are about play. I was the only person with a funny name in my class. Okay, all the others were typical English names. Thistlethwaite, Thomason, Mottershed, Loxham, Moore, Chatterton, Entwistle, Fairhurst, and Kroto. What's that? What's he doing here? And believe it or not, I didn't always want to be a scientist. What I really wanted to be was Superman. And in fact, you see, I thought I'm a scientist, and therefore I need evidence. I thought I'd show you myself here, trying to be Superman. But I couldn't fly, so I had to do something else. I played tennis, and I did gymnastics, and I acted in a play, Henry V, a very famous play by Shakespeare. And I thought I'd blow this picture up. I'm the handsome guy over there, by the way, if you didn't recognize me. And I always tell young people, are there any of you who want to be actors? Put your hands up. if you want to be an actor. You want to be an actor? Don't do it. Because the guy in front, he became an actor. And he's now 5,000 years old. And I'm a young guy by comparison. But in fact, Ian and I were in the same year at school. He's been a friend ever since. And a fantastic actor at school, and probably the greatest Shakespearean actor of my generation. And in fact, he came out to Tallahassee and did a wonderful one-man show with the students there and stayed with us for a few days. I did other things at school, and I think you need to think about this. My main interest was drawing, okay? I did lots of these things, drawing these things like this. And I only got good for my frog. I was so irritated about that. I thought it should have been very good. And I drew this building. I was interested in architecture, and that's interesting and important. And this is Stockholm Town Hall, which I drew when I was 13 years old, long before I knew what the Nobel Prize was, but that is where the Nobel Prize is awarded. So that was another aspect. And I collected things. I collected things, particularly things that were free. It's wonderful. There are works of art under your nose. You don't have to buy them. You don't have to go to the galleries. Look in magazines, look in books. You can go into art galleries and you can get things that are free. These are things I kept ever since I was your age, 12, 13 or 14 years old. And I just treasure them as much as I do some things that I paid a lot of money for. This is Swinging London, the reason for going back to England from the USA when I was a postdoc, and I discovered it wasn't swinging as much as I thought it was. My favorite image of the sun. I love seeing images and capturing them. Menus from art galleries. Basically, this was free. Okay, fantastic image. Free postcards. I've got a huge collection of postcards. And I love these things that are humorous, okay, and cuttings from magazines. And I like the cartoons as well. And here, then we'll win the Nobel Prize and get rich and go on talk shows. But then, what about babes? When do we get those? You know, rather more important than Nobel Prizes. And other images, beautiful images of photographs from Stanley Kubrick's film. And I like this one. Fantastic shot of the war room in Dr. Strangelove. And there's a fight breaks out there. And here, gentlemen, you can't fight here. It's the war room. A very interesting comment. And my first book that I collected, Refugees, by Ronald Searle, who actually was on the Burma Railroad. And I love this book because these beautiful drawings of refugees. But most of this ends up in the trash can. And I call it trash can art. Don't throw it away. Keep it. When you die, someone else will throw it away. But I want to show you something about photography, because I had a camera, and this is my camera, a Forklender camera, given to me by my mother. You had to do all that to get a picture. How many in the audience have done that? Yes? Everybody over the age of 325, yes? And, you know, to do all that, you had to have a very good incentive. And actually, she's here in the audience. Okay, there, right there. Yeah, okay. But today, all you have to do is do that. And you've lost a lot. Many of you, in fact, probably all of you, don't understand what's going on inside there. It's very complex electronics. I knew everything about the process, the chemistry, what was going on, the interaction with photons and matter. And I think that epitomizes one of the problems today, is that the technology that we have is actually almost impossible to understand and impossible to repair. And in repairing things, one learns how things work. University is the best place to explore all avenues of your creative potential. When I was at Sheffield University, I was art editor for the student magazine. I did the covers, and I did posters. Here's a cover of Arrows, the magazine at Sheffield. That's another cover. My first award was not for science, it was for this design. And in fact, basically, it got into the Sunday Times. I won this award, and I used to look like this. Yeah, I did, believe it or not. Hard to believe. And you, well, mainly at the back, are young and beautiful now, and you're going to look old and decrepit like me one day. Okay, there you go. Your youth and beauty will not last. So enjoy it whilst you may. I did posters and these sorts of things and lots of things like this. And it was very easy at university, and it'll be much more difficult in the future. I do logos as well, and in fact here gives you an idea of something about logos. And this is the Kroto Research Institute. And basically what they are is dropping something into the test tube. So a little idea of what chemistry is about. A conference on the population explosion. Breakthrough. I like this one. If only that had been a C, it would have been ouch. Okay. And I designed a stamp for the UK in the centenary of the Nobel Prize, AFT, Association Française Tallahassee, for my wife, who was with this organization. But you see the French flag there. So in logos, you want little ideas like this, okay? Oh, I redesigned the Japanese flag. I thought I'd show you this one, like that, with a buckyball in there. So those are the things I like doing. And I thought I'd show you how a logo gets prepared here. I was out down in Australia to give a lecture, well, a workshop to 2,000 to 3,000 young people across the whole of Australia. And in fact, I thought I'd design a logo for them, and here it is. I was in a restaurant designing it, and it ended up as this. And I'm trying to sell this to the Australian soccer team at the moment. But those are the sorts of things that I like doing. I want to talk about art because you cannot be an enlightened human being in our world without art and graphics and other things of this nature. I want to show you some of my favorite paintings, my top 1 paintings. Pope Innocent X by Velasquez, okay? And he's actually a cartoon, basically, on a bottle of wine, okay? And if you see, the cartoonist sees the eyebrows and the hands. Edward Hopper's Nighthawks, one of the great paintings of America. And what do we see? We see loneliness, a depiction of an aspect of human condition. One of my favorite paintings is this one. And then why is that? Well, let's think about it. Let's look at this painting. Look at the hands and the brush. What we see in that angle is pride of this guy who's just painted this car, right? Now, if I ask you, let's exhibit pride without looking at the face. But here, it's brilliant. It's done from the back, just for the angle of the cigarette, right? And the paintbrush. And my favorite English painting, the badminton game. And when we're at home in Tallahassee, or we have our home in England, I look at this image. I only wish I had this painting to think of England and home. Well, the human dimension of art is very important. And I'm now going to show you what I consider to be the great painting of the 20th century. Okay? And it's Guernica. In 1936, the holy city of the Basque people, Guernica, was bombed to the ground by the fascists. Okay? And there's a lesson for this, because on the second floor of the United Nations building in Manhattan, just outside the Security Council, this piece of 20th century artwork offers a graphic and chilling reminder of the horrors of war. And let's look at it. Can there be any more powerful depiction of a mother whose child has just been killed by a bomb? That is the way that art can get you. A dying soldier, a dead soldier, a horse with a spear inside it. The whole painting is the greatest painting of the 20th century. Because a great painting has to capture some spiritual aspect, not in a mystical sense, not in a religious sense, something to do with the human condition. And that's why that is a great painting. Well, there are other aspects. Some artists that we know. Kittai, he became a close friend in the last few years of his life. Paul Wunderlich and Karen Sikessi. I thought I'd show you. Well, let me just go back to Kitai because here he is. He just died a few years ago, some of his drawings. And in fact, here we have Marinka smoking, one of my favorite paintings. Paul Wunderlich and Karen Sikessi are friends of ours. Paul also died just a year ago, and here we are working together on one of his prints and one of his paintings just for me. And here is a painting on the wall. And Karen is a photographer, and from Madame Recamier's David's Madame Recamier, sorry about that. She took this photograph, and here is a photograph that we have, and here is my all-time favorite painting. And I want you to look at this, because it's called Streichholz. And look at the brilliant way that the burning match is part of her eye, okay? I think fantastic painting. It's about synthesis, and this is a drawing, a self-portrait of Paul. Roger Dean lives in our town in England, and here he's one of his great covers, record covers, The Flying Elephants. Also a depiction of an interesting depiction of this bird coming down like a pelican. If you've ever seen pelicans diving, and here is some similarity between these two airplanes. Another person that we've met, and he died too, not that long ago, one of my favorite posters, art. And here, an artist painting the doves of peace. Okay, and here he is, taking his hat off, and here I am, paying homage with my hat on, and here Margaret again took this photograph, and then this is my favorite photograph. Margaret took it from the back, okay? That's about art. Our artwork, we have that in our house around us. And I think most people do have things on the wall, and they're very important. Our house in England, by Bruni, Lynn O'Feeney, again Lynn O'Feeney, Howard Hodgkin, Paul Patrick Caulfield, Jeffrey Jones, Leonard Baskin. And I think this is one of the most incredible pieces of art. I think it comes from this part of the world, maybe the Philippines. But how in a piece of wood can you show sorrow so powerfully? And I was given this, and I'd never seen it before, but since then I've seen it in many places. Sculpture by Ralph Brown. And my favorite road, our favorite road, Highway 1 in California. This beautiful black and white image. The Golden Gate Bridge, Santa Fe Railways, and again, a painting in our house in Florida. So I surround myself with these things. We do, and they're very important. Now I'm going to come to architecture, because that is an interest of mine as well. I drew this, Le Corbusier building, Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, Stockholm Town Hall, a favorite building, the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona by Gaudi, the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank by Norman Foster, and this amazing building by Frank Lloyd Wright. And I want to show you something about this. If you look at the structure, it's the same as this Roman aqueduct, okay? The architecture, where the architect has taken this beautiful structure and created a building with the same one. And that is in the film Gattaca, if you go. But the final picture is this one, because this image led to our breakthrough in science. It came from architecture. It didn't come just from chemistry. And we'll come a little bit to that. In music, you had to play guitar, and Margaret's in the middle. She used to have long hair, right? And this is one of my friends. And I used to play the guitar. Now my fingers get trapped in the strings. And I want to talk about creativity here, again, where you synthesize by taking music together with film, okay? Let's see, hopefully, that this will work. Let's stop it there. It's on YouTube, so you can watch it again. But this was, I think, considered one of the first big breakthroughs in the beginning of a film, where you had this little movie. But listen to the way that music and the picture go together, okay? So that's what's creativity, to do something, bringing together music like that together with an image, okay? Not only that, oops, let's get out of that, I think I have to go down. Another one, closer to home in some ways for us, which is, go up to there, one of my all-time favorite pieces of music. That evokes for me the desert in the USA, bringing music together with film in a way. Again, synthesis. I just designed a stained glass window. And someone came a few weeks ago after my lecture and say, well, you design book jackets, design one. And here I've got Schrödinger's flea bag with a flea on the nose. And here you go. All right, so that's it. And this is my most recent design. Our two sons have a little business. Well, it's not making much money, but anyway, it's basically our older son's made a film with Ian McKellen. Ian agreed to make a little movie for him, a one-day shoot. And our younger son is a cartoonist, and they wanted a logo. So here I found a logo from a construction company with the initial K. And there was a pencil in the same book as I was looking at it. And I thought, well, I can do something with this. I can get the K, put this into the film side, and then bring in the pencil tip, do that, make it look like a pencil, and end up as Kroto Film and Design. And that gives you an idea of what I think one of my favorite creations is all about. Bringing things together, basically seeing what others have done and seen, but bringing them together in a different and new way. Now, science, totally misunderstood. Let me give you first an example of one of the issues. Common sense. Common sense says that the sun goes around the earth. The sun, who agrees with me? Nobody. I don't know what it does, but in Florida it starts somewhere over there and it ends over here. The sun goes round the earth. Who agrees with me? None of you. One person, right? It's uncommon sense. It's uncommon sense that tells us the earth is turning on its axis, that makes it seem as though the sun is going around us. And it's the uncommon sense and bravery of Copernicus, Galileo, and Giordano Bruno, who was burnt to death. That's interesting. Our understanding of this and claiming that it was the other way around, these people had a big problem. Galileo was threatened by the Inquisition and the Catholic Church. So it's very interesting. Not a single person here agreed with me that it's actually common sense which tells us that these guys are wrong. Or are they wrong? Carlo Ponti's film is the death of Giordano Bruno. Okay? Most people have accepted the claim that the Earth goes round the sun without knowing the evidence. I'll ask you a question. How many of you know the evidence that the Earth is turning on its axis? Not a single person has put their hand up. And I want you to think about that, because that's the first major lesson of today. The one that I want you to think about, and perhaps make you hate me. Because everyone in this room has accepted, it seems, that the Earth is going around the sun without knowing the evidence. And that's one of the biggest problems in the world today. And I want you to think, what else have you accepted without evidence? I want you to think about this. Because we're in a very dangerous world. Because large numbers of people are accepting bullshit without thinking about it. And really trying to force other people to accept this bullshit. And that's one of the problems that the world faces, and one of the reasons we have some difficulty in achieving peace. Okay, no evidence. Okay. The Pew Center came out with this, that God created the world in 6 days, Genesis 44, this is in the States. That the majority of people think that God created a day in 6 days. Actually, most of them believe it was in 7 days. They don't even get that because he was supposed to have rested on the seventh day. God is a divine presence. That's 57% believe that. Evolution, 33, then don't know, 10. And we know some of the dark consequences of this. The problem is that nonsense is common today. Common sense, uncommon sense, and common nonsense. I'm going to give you one example of this. There's this $27 million museum in Cincinnati. School children are going in busloads into this museum, and others as well. Did humans live with dinosaurs? God made Adam and Eve on the same day as land animals, so dinosaurs and people lived at the same time. Well, if they were at the same time, we must have put saddles on them and ridden them. Okay. What did they originally eat? Before Adam sinned, all animals, including dinosaurs, were vegetarian. Well, you don't need those teeth for a salad. Okay. What happened to the dinosaurs? I didn't go to Noah's Ark. They were sort of buried by the flood and preserved as fossils. And there's a Noah's Ark there, and Noah's a Scot. He's got a Scottish accent saying, "We got to build a big boat because there's a big flood coming." Okay. And here's a little girl scratching her head because she knows that there are two problems here. Science suggests that the world is something like 4,500 million years old. Okay, so that's the issue, all right? Science has suggested to us very strongly that this animal is our cousin. And I'm proud that 99% of my genes are the same as this guy. And look at the humanity in the face. It's obviously sort of a football supporter who's just lost. Their team's just lost, okay? 70% the same as this guy. 50% is the same as a fruit fly, and the maggots as well. You're related to the maggots in this thing. They're 70% the same as pumpkins. And you only have to look at the average politician to check on that. There's more evidence for evolution than any truth we have ever discovered. The evidence comes not just from Darwin writing this in a book. It comes from chemistry, physics, geology, biology, geography, paleontology, oceanography, volcanology, tectonic plates, you name it. The attack, particularly in the USA, by large numbers of people on evolution is not just an attack on Darwin, it's an attack on the whole of the sciences. And that's an important issue today. And what has the sciences done? Well, let's look at penicillin. You don't have to pray, that's a miracle. In 3 weeks, this little girl in 1942 was cured. A year early, she would have died. And here is one of the unsung heroes of that story. And the future is that bacteria are evolving with an immunity to antibiotics. We must just think about it, and young people like you are going to face a future where we have to solve this problem. We may be going back to this. Anesthetics. I want you to have a look. There were no mobile phones in those days. This was an amputation without an anesthetic. I want you to look at it and see what it was like 200 years ago to have an operation. Women had a mastectomy without an anesthetic. There can be no more humanitarian contribution from all of the sciences, and particularly from chemistry, as anesthetics. That's what scientists can do. That's why science is as humanitarian an area of study and for a career as you can possibly get. But it's misunderstood. People don't understand what science is. There's certainly several aspects to it. There's certainly a body of knowledge, what you learn at school. The application of that knowledge is technology. The many ways in which we discover something that was not understood before, the scientific method, but much more important than that. And something that's been forgotten because science is so fantastically useful is that it used to have another name, natural philosophy. And in the perception of most people, its incredible value of science has been lost in the spectrum of human intellectual development. The most important aspect by far is that natural philosophy is the only philosophical construct we have devised, the human race has devised, to determine truth with any degree of reliability. I'm going to read it again. It's the second most important thing as far as I'm concerned. I think it's important. So as I'm the guy in charge at the moment, it's important. Natural philosophy is the only philosophical construct we have devised to determine truth with any degree of reliability. I'll change it slightly. I'm going to define and just call the philosophical construct to determine truth as natural philosophy. Okay. In that case, the ethical purpose of education must involve the teaching of young people how they can decide what they're being told is true. I hope we can all agree on that. And the teaching of a skeptical, evidence-based assessment of all claims without exception is a fundamental intellectual integrity issue. Without evidence, anything goes. Think about it. The freedom to doubt, the great scientist, great communicator. I think the greatest communicator of any kind, not just science community, was Richard Feynman. In the meaning of it all says, the freedom to doubt is an important matter in the sciences, and I believe in other fields. It was born out of a struggle. It was a struggle to be permitted to doubt, to be unsure. Giordano Bruno was burnt to death. Galileo was threatened by the Inquisition. Copernicus couldn't, he sort of published it after his death. He was dead when it was published. And I do not want to forget the importance of that struggle and by default let it fall away. If you know you're unsure, you have a chance to change the situation. I want to demand this freedom for future generations, for you young people at the back. And I think it's under threat. It's falling away. It's a problem. Walt Whitman, the great American writer, said it better than anybody I know. He said, I like the scientific spirit, the holding off, the being sure, but not too sure. The double take. The great writer, sure and not too sure. The willingness to surrender the ideas when the evidence is against them. This is ultimately fine. It keeps the way beyond open. That's the critical part. Here he draws attention to an incredibly important thing. Science is open. It moves on inexorably. If someone makes a mistake, we find it out. Our understanding of the universe advances and advances. It gets better and better and better. All other constructs are locked forever in unshakable dogmatic opinion, intrinsically impervious to rational criticism, because people believe these things without evidence, and so there's no argument. You can't do anything about it. That doesn't mean it isn't important to them personally, but it's not important to me. And I don't wish to be bound by the beliefs of people who have no evidence and just constructs of the human race. Science is different from all the other things. It's the way it is, the universe. This is the way the universe. Everything else, the music, the arts, the books, the politics, the religions, they're all constructs of the human race. In that sense, science is different. And that's why there is a conflict in my mind and the minds of 90% of scientists. Let's go on to something else. Language and culture. Language in all its forms is the key to unlocking the aspects of our world from cultural creations of mankind to the mysteries of the universe. Okay. In a Faraday discussion in Birmingham in 1954 on the study of fast reactions, the German scientist Manfred Eigen asked the Oxford Don Ronnie Bell how the English language would describe reactions which were faster than fast. Ronnie Bell replied, "Damn fast reactions, Manfred. If they get faster than that, the English language will not fail you. Call them damn fast reactions indeed." That's English, okay? If you want to understand Shakespeare, you have to understand English. If you want to understand Goethe and Schiller, you have to learn German. If I want to understand the great Thai writers, I have to understand Thai. Can't be done. Japanese and Chinese characters. Mizaru, Kikazaru, Iwazaru. Zaru translates both as no and monkey, and therefore no see, no speak, no hear, and we understand why in Japanese the three monkeys are there. Okay, we can understand Chinese characters, and without it, you don't understand the culture of the Chinese. In fact, I can understand that because that is actually Kroto in Japanese. Okay, Kroto means expert or professional. So let's talk about this. The language of science. Language of physics, the great American physicist.
If you're interested in the ultimate character of the physical world, or the complete world, and at the present time our only way to understand that is through a mathematical type of reasoning, then I don't think a person can fully appreciate, or in fact can appreciate much, of these particular aspects of the world, the great depth and character of the universality of the laws, the relationships of things, without an understanding of mathematics. I think it's just, I don't know any other way to do it. We don't know any other way to describe it accurately and well, or to see the interrelationships without it. So I don't think a person who hasn't developed some mathematical sense is capable of fully appreciating this aspect of the world. Don't misunderstand me. There are many, many aspects of the world that mathematics is unnecessary for, such as love, and which are very delightful and wonderful to appreciate and to be awed and mysterious about. And I don't mean to say that the only thing in the world is physics, but you were talking about physics, and if that's what you're talking about, then to not know mathematics is a severe limitation in understanding the world.
So this is it. The language of physics, the language of the universe is mathematics. Galileo understood that. Newton understood this. And it was a long time before people realized that you had to look at this, and this was the language. And it's not my fault. It's the way it is. I often say, someone says, "Can you explain this without mathematics?" I say, "Do you think I use mathematics to make my life difficult?" That would be like trying to give this lecture in Thai when I don't understand how to do it. Okay? And I think it's not, as Feynman says, that it's the only thing. But if you want to understand physics, that's the way it is. Okay? That's the way it is. Not my fault. It's the universe's fault. Okay? For not... Now, some people appreciate this. Okay? They've got tattoos. And I think they're making a statement that they do like these things. Okay? This is a mistake here, right? You know. All right? The Schrödinger equation. Maxwell's relationship, okay, DNA, okay, the Heisenberg uncertainty, LSD, I'll gloss over this, okay, buckyball and a Möbius strip. And my favorite is this one, Nicole, a physics graduate student. My tattoo is the Taylor expansion of sign. And listen to this. I consider it the most beautiful thing I have ever learned. Isn't that wonderful? Here's a young woman tattooing this and says it's the most beautiful thing I have ever learned. It's like someone learned something, some poetry. And here is the group picture. And it shows you how international science is. This is our group in the UK before I left for Florida. And we see people from all over the world. If you become a scientist, you become someone with a culture that transcends everything else. Because it's not nationalistic, it's not what you believe, it's not political. It's the way the universe is. And that's the most important aspect of it. The written word is something interesting as well. John Cornforth, who was shown here at the age of 18, when he finally realized that he was going to be deaf for the rest of his life. Yet he overcame that, become a Nobel Prize winner. I met him for the first time in 1975, and I thought you had to be as smart as this guy to win a Nobel. You don't need to be. I know from my own experience. You have to be a good scientist and to actually do some nice work. He says, poetry is my music. This is interesting. It tells you something about people who are really totally deaf. He said, I remember some 20,000 lines of poetry. And when I remember them, I often find I've improved them. Again, Othello, a favorite line of mine. Again, you have to understand the English language. Othello 3:3. What dost thou mean? You have a good name in man and woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse steals trash, to something, nothing. Money, to something, nothing. That's Shakespeare telling you something about money. 'Twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. That's the great Shakespeare. And you, many here, can understand something of the culture. And without language, you don't understand it. Humor, that's important. Okay, there you go. I just think that's funny. I don't know why, but it does look funny. My favorite cartoon goes back, and I've got this from when I was a child. I thought I'd show you it, okay? This man is looking at a toll bridge. In those days, it was 1 shilling. Cars, horse-drawn vehicles, 1 shilling. Hand-drawn vehicles are free. So here's the solution, okay? That is humor, and humor is vital. Our son has taken, this is a Jackson Pollock painting, okay? And here he's done a cartoon, and you can see the pigeons actually did it, okay? I thought I'd show you one of my favorite pieces of film, okay? And this is considered to be one of the most appreciated bit of film in the UK. And I thought I'd show you.
Now, righto, Grandad, you pop up.
Now, I'm going to tell you what they're trying to do. They're going to take a chandelier down, okay? So we're just going to go on. We'll go on a bit. Right?